He gives a great massage, Jeffrey. Did he tell you that?
Wow, no, he did not.
Yes, except he
learned from
bites
the
and he
best.
licks. Except he bites and he licks. We don't like that. Yeah, no, I sort of like it.
Dr. Creepy is back. It's Dr. Creepy.
There you go. Oh yeah, Dr. Creepy from that show we did, the Dirty Jokes, the movie.
Oh, that
Still
was
gotta get it.
phenomenal.
Gotta get that out somewhere. It is really funny. I was actually looking at it the other day, and it's actually got a lot of really funny stuff in, and it's
Yeah.
just sitting in my library. What the heck?
Well, of course, I
So
think
anyway,
about
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, you know who asked about you yesterday?
Who's that?
Nobody, not a soul. I felt bad. I'm sorry. It's just
Yeah. Well,
not
I'm
a
very
single
good friends with
person. I
nobody.
tried to find somebody to ask about you, but not one person. I could not
Nobody-
find a single person.
Hey, nobody
And
and I
Linda.
are on a first name basis.
Who is?
Nobody and I.
Oh, nobody. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, it always reminds me how I started out like 60 years ago with nothing, and I still have most of it left.
That's
So-
right.
Ain't that the truth?
Okay,
Oh,
I'm
I
gonna
think
start.
my daughter's here. Anyway.
I'm gonna officially. Your
Is
daughter's
that
here.
Mary? Say hi to Mary for me and Maya.
Mary and Maya,
Oh,
come
yeah,
to
yeah.
the camera and say hi.
Oh,
Keep
Maya's
going.
not here. Maya's at her house. My daughter, I have a daughter with Down syndrome, little Mary.
Yep.
She's my little sweetheart, what I call
Mary's a
liquid
rock
love.
star.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
love
she
Mary.
is a little rock star.
And
Yeah.
Maya's actually a rock star, right?
Yeah, Maya's doing real well with her songwriting and stuff like that. And yeah,
Phenomenal.
We're gonna talk about all that. I'm gonna go to
Okay.
Facebook.
All right.
I'm gonna officially start
Wow.
this like a school marm. You guys, I have to have you both on a call or a leash or something. I just kidding.
Ooh,
I
love.
once I give this over to
It's that kind of
Jeffrey.
podcast, huh?
Once I get to Jeffrey doing this, you guys can go crazy. I'll just do the beginning and give it to Jeffrey. Facebook, get ready. This is going to be the interview of all interviews. Okay, this is going to be balls to the wall, anything goes, years and years and years and decades of expertise at your fingertips between my co-host, Jeffrey Peterson, the 420 comic. You know him, you love him. He's a Vegas icon. I'm stalling to go to my photo page to read his intro so I don't mess it up. So just bear with me. I almost.
There's a bear with you. Run.
The 420 comic, the information here, just one second. Okay. He's been the 420 comic for 19 stinking years. 19 years. Sorry, Jeffrey. He worked with Cheech and Chong. In fact, he's the only one, or I think it's the only one that's been on stage with both of them at the same time. That's amazing. And he's worked with Willie Nelson, The Unknown Comic, and many, many more legends seen on HBO, TMZ, ABC. Welcome to my co-hosting, the Jeffrey Peterson in the bag that is the 420 bag.
Yeah. I thought I'd wear a bag over my head too, but it's a bag of weed. So
I'm the only one that needs to wear a bag. I'm 70. No one's looking at me. I need to wear a bag.
that's right. You can become a bag lady very easily.
Very. There's no prerequisites for that. Now coming
The great
to
thing
this-
about having sex with a bag lady is you can drop her off anywhere afterwards, right? Yeah.
That's right.
in the desert, doesn't matter. Oh my gosh. Now coming to the stage with about 6 decades, I'm guessing, a lot of experience, a lot of shows. Jeffrey Peterson's going to go into his litany of accomplishments and talk to him and extract all kinds of information from his career. I'm going to touch on the touchy-feely side of the unknown comic. You've seen him all over from way back. You know, the internet is a weird thing. It says he's most known for the Gong Show, but he's been so much more than that, so much more on top of that. He's been in the Laugh-In. Oh my gosh, my comedy roots. And I'm telling you, the very first album I ever heard was the Red Fox Red album, and Murray Langston has worked with him. So that's just a touch of what Jeffrey's going to cover. Now I get to bring him onto this screen, and I get to do the interviewing of the touchy-feely stuff of Murray Langston, the unknown comic. Yay!
Hey, thank you. All right, let me take this bag off my head. All right, there we go.
Murray, how you doing?
Hey guys, how are you? Yeah, this is my doggy bag. Anyway, how you guys doing? Good to see you this bright morning or afternoon
know.
or evening. I don't know what time it is. I have a bag over my head. I don't know nothing. Anyway, so how you kids doing? You are kids, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how
Jeffrey,
you say
tell
you
him
are,
how
Linda?
you're doing.
I'm doing
I'm doing
fantastic.
great.
You know, Murray is one of my favorite human beings, and the unknown comic. I wouldn't have called myself the 420 comic hadn't it been for the unknown comic. So, and
Well, that's good to know.
yeah, that's why. And
Yes.
I can thank my buddy Vic Dunlop, our late great friend and my mentor, for connecting me with you. And I'll never forget when I first met you, we went to have coffee, and then when Vic and I left, he said, Murray thinks you're funny. And I said, really? And he goes, he doesn't think anybody's funny. And I said, and he goes,
You know,
neither do I.
Yeah, well, Vic and I go back about 50 years. I first met Vic. I remember it was a pay toilet. He was crawling under, I was crawling under, and we hit heads. And that's the first time I met him. So many years ago, but sadly he's gone. He's left us.
He is. I think about him every day.
Heads?
And he
Yeah,
lives
yeah,
inside
yeah.
of me. You know what was the greatest compliment I got? I did a show one time at the Comedy Store in the belly room, and Argus Hamilton, after my set, he said, "You know, you're really funny. You know who you remind me of?" And I said, "Who's that?" He said, "Vic Dunlop." And I said,
kidding.
"Really?" I said, "Well, Vic's got his thumbprint on me because he was my Mr. Miyagi."
Yeah, there you go. No, we love and miss Vic Dunlop, that's for sure. He was just a wonder, and he had the greatest laugh ever of anybody. When he would laugh, it would just take over the entire room.
He could walk out and make the sound of a pterodactyl and just get the whole, just make a sound, and the whole audience would go
Yeah.
bananas.
I know, he was great, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
You know,
I'm so lucky I get to work. I want to make this announcement. I'm having a 5-day run at the Ventura Harbor Comedy Club, April 20th through the 24th. And guess what? On Friday, April 22nd, I'm so excited to say that the unknown comic is headlining the
Yay!
dopest show on earth.
Coming out of retirement.
Yeah.
Yes, I actually retired many years ago, and then last month I realized nobody knew I retired. So I'm going to come back and try it again, try one more time. I'm just going to come out for about 6 months.
Let's
and
go
do a
into
bunch of
your
stuff.
early life. I was reading about you. You're fascinating. But
Oh,
before-
well, thank you. Yeah, my early
Before-
life, I was much younger back then. Yeah.
I know we have so much in common. You were born, you were raised, and you're a military.
I was born, bred, and buttered in Canada, which is upper US.
Take off,
That's
babe.
up there.
Yeah.
And you immigrated to America via the U.S. Navy. OMG, you're a veteran.
Yes, I'm a veteran. I was actually also in the Girl Scouts for 3 years. Broke a nail twice. Broke this nail, I think, and it wasn't pleasant, but I got over it. But I was actually in the Canadian Army first, and then I crossed the border. But if you go back then, I was an idiot. I wanted to be in show business, and I figured, how am I going to get to the States? And that seemed to be the easiest way. But I didn't know there was any kind of a war going on about Vietnam and all that stuff. And I crossed the border when everybody was going to Canada, which was unusual. And
I was just gonna
The craziest thing
say,
about this story is I didn't know Canada had an army.
ah, no, well, like I said, that's where I was in the Girl Scouts. Yes. So and it was not easy passing that physical. I'll tell you right now. Okay.
But the cookies were worth it. The cookies made it worth it.
Yes, I got my cookies many times. Yes.
when they say thin mints, they're
Oh my
not
God. Oh,
talking
boy.
body
Yes.
parts.
There you go.
So you came
So
to America, you went in the military. I'm a military veteran. So I got to ask you, what was your MOS? Where did you serve exactly?
I served on an aircraft carrier, USS Shangri-La, for 4 years. I did my basic training in Chicago, Illinois, at the Great Lakes there, and then interestingly enough, though, when I went onto the ship, they asked me what I wanted to do, and I said I don't know. So they stuck me in this place called CIC, Combat Information Center, which was all radar. It was all confidential and secret information, which I didn't know. So interestingly enough, again, about 6 months later, I took my test to become a petty officer, and it came back from the Bureau of Personnel that they'd made a mistake and that they couldn't give me my petty officer ranking because I was Canadian, and nobody checked on the fact that I was not a citizen. So they really irritated me because so they took me out of Combat Information Center and they made me clean toilets, and I got so pissed that I jumped ship the next time we were in Philly and went back to Canada. Was gone for I think 3 or 4 weeks, and then AWOL, and then I figured, if I don't go back, I'll never be allowed in the States again. So I ended up coming back and went on the ship. And my captain was fortunate. He understood what I went through and gave me any job on the ship that I wanted or a discharge. And I said, well, give me the radio and TV station, which he did. And so the next 2 or 3 years, I was like the original Good Morning Vietnam guy. I had my own radio show called Murray's Musical Merry-Go-Round of Music. And I played movies, and it was just I ended up having a great time as a radio announcer on the ship. You're talking about 3,000 guys. So I became sort of like a little mini celebrity on that ship in those days, which was pretty cool. But when I saw Good Morning Vietnam, several years later with Robin Williams, that was exactly what I ended up doing many years before. Yeah.
And you're also a musician too, right?
That's right. I played a flute, as you know, those nights we spent together. No, I became a drummer. Yeah, I actually became a drummer while I was a teenager. I took up some drums, and I bought a set when I was in the military, and I became part of a band also called the Bounty Hunters, and we played in Philadelphia while I was in the military, in local clubs and stuff like that. Yeah, so I've really had I've had a fun time, and that's just in the beginning. Yeah, playing in a band with
You've been a single dad. I was a single mom. Do you see how much we have in common? We were born, we were raised, something America.
Well, hell, why don't we just get married, Linda? There's a great Motel 3 between Barstow and Vegas. We could hook up there. What do you say?
Jeffrey
I'm an ordained minister.
Oh, you're all right.
This up.
I'll do it right now.
Well, I think marriage is a wonderful way to spend a weekend. So let's do it. Yeah.
So Murray, about
Jeffrey, you remembered my name. I like that. Huh?
Yeah,
Murray.
Yes. Well, I got to write the check, right? I'm going to have to write. I'm going to have to write the check. I better remember your name. Right. So, Sonny and Cher, did you audition for that, or did they know about you and it sought you out?
No. I auditioned for it. Interestingly enough, what happened is years before, remember Laugh-In was a big, huge show, Roland Martin's Laugh-In. Sure. Remember that show? And I was out working in a computer room at the time. That was way back in the computer days when they had sorters and collators. And that was my first job at Universal Studios, of all places. I was working in the commissary below, and which was an exciting time for me because during those days when I was just like 20, 21 years old after I got out of the military, That was one of my first jobs. And I would go and hang around all the sets and got to see all these huge celebrities, on my breaks from my computer job. But anyway, that was a time when Tiny Tim, remember Tiny Tim made it big on Laugh-In. And I was naive, not knowing anything about show business. So I went, if Tiny Tim could make it, maybe I got a shot. So I called up. This is actually true. Well, in my computer room, I was doing these stupid impressions, and I worked on this impression of a fork. I weighed about 90 pounds back then, and I did this stupid impression where I just stood back and went, here's my impression of a fork, and I went like that, and that was it, and I did a few other stupid impressions. So anyway, I called up the NBC, and I asked to talk to the producer of Laugh-In, which was a guy named George Slaughter, and he got on the phone.
Legend. Wow.
What happened today? So he gets on the phone. I said, yeah, hi, this is Murray Langston. I saw Tiny Tim was on your show. I'd like to get on your show too. And he said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm working on this impression of a fork. And he said, oh, he said, why don't you come in? Oh, somebody's at my door. No, actually, why don't you come in? And so I went in, and I was in front of a bunch of writers, and I did my ridiculous impression of fork. And the next thing I knew, I was hired to be on Roland Martin's Laugh-In as beautiful downtown Burbank's greatest impressionist. I'm gonna have to move this to another room so we have more privacy. I actually have some guys working on my house, and they're just starting. Anyway, so I'm gonna move this over.
That's a revelation. You have a house? Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
We're really learning things about you.
And it's weird staring at the 3 room. Here, I'll show you. Here's my daughter. Hey, Mary. Oh, where did Mary go? Oh, here she is. Mary, say hi. Look, say hi. On television, say hi, Jeffrey.
Hi,
Hey, Mary.
Hi.
And
Good to see you, Mary.
Music.
Yeah, we're gonna go see The Sound of Music. Yeah, and
All
Mary's a
right.
comedian too, right?
Yeah.
She tells jokes. You want to tell them a joke?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead. Tell them a joke.
Knock, knock.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Who's there?
Dishes.
Dishes.
Dishes who?
Dishes.
This way I talk.
Dishes the way I talk.
So good to see you, Mary.
Yeah. What? You want to tell another one?
Yes.
Okay, one more.
Knock, knock.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Barney.
Barney.
Barney who?
Yeah, big Mary. Barney said, Mary, play. I don't know how.
All right, say goodbye. Say thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Say goodbye, Mary.
Bye, Mary.
Way to go, Mary.
Oh, okay, there she goes. All right. Say bye-bye. Okay. Anyway, so we were talking about what were we talking
So
about?
you became a
Well,
regular.
so I got on
on
Roland
Laugh-In.
Martin's Laugh-In. I got on Roland Martin's Laugh-In, and I thought that was, that was going to be like, wow, this is it. I'm going to become a huge star. And I waited for the show, and the show came on. Roland Martin introduced me as saying things like, one guy would say, yeah, I found this great act. And he says, well, what does he do? And he says, he does these impressions. And he says, impressions? And he says, yeah, what does he do? He said, he does impression of a fork. And he says, where'd you find him? He said, what do you mean when I found him? I was having dinner and he was next to my plate. Oh, you want to tell? All right, come here. All right, she wants to tell you one more joke. All right, go ahead.
Mary, let's do it.
All right,
Knock, knock.
knock, knock.
Who's there?
Ready.
Little old lady.
Little old lady who?
You're big. You're
You can yodel. Great.
That's right, little old lady who.
Little
Very
old lady.
good,
There
Mary.
you go. All right, thank you, Mary.
You got the gift. Look, you have two
So-
talented daughters, so that's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Well, she's that, and the other one's a songwriter, and so. So anyway, I appeared on Laugh-In. So to get back to the Sonny and Cher show, how I ended up with the, I ended up working in a little place called Canopos, trying to form a comedy act with this guy, Jack. So it was Jack and Murray. We did this comedy act, and we worked at a little place called Canopos, which was on Sunset next door to the Body Shop. And the same guys who were working there were a couple of guys you might know, Cheech and Chong. We all worked for a hamburger a night in this little joint called Canopos. You know, Cheech and Chong remember. We would work to sometimes 2 or 3 people. And so in those days, me and my partner would end up sometimes doing Cheech and Chong's act, and they would do our corny act.
Far out, man.
That's how far back I go with those guys. We started all out together. Yeah. So if you ever see them, just say, "Hey, how's Canopos doing?" Yeah.
I'm going to.
Yeah. And so anyway, after Canopos closed, I ended up, Red Fox had a nightclub on La Cienega, and I started hanging out there with me and Jack broke up, but there was this black dude that I was hanging out with named Freeman King.
Yay, the great Freeman King.
Yeah, so we formed a comedy. Well, we didn't form a comedy team then, but we did sketches together. We were Red Fox's opening act. We became Red Fox's opening act. And we did all these really disgusting sketches, and it was very, very funny though. And then, you know, I ended up becoming pretty close with Red Fox back in those days, and for years to come. But anyway, so when
What kind of person was he?
He was a great guy. The weird thing is that, you know, at the club, everybody was hanging out there. I got to know Temptations, Flip Wilson, but it was really a drug hangout too. Everybody was going there for their cocaine. And I didn't do drugs. I didn't know nothing about drugs back in those days. And I never really did. I was never really, for some reason, never really got into drugs, you know. But he was just the greatest sweetheart of a guy, and I got to know him for years. And he always sort of considered me or him. He was sort of like my mentor back in those days, because what happened when we were doing a sketch, and it's funny, I still remember her name. An agent approached us named Sue Golden, approached me and Freeman and said that they were getting ready to cast a Sonny and Cher show. So, and we'd like to audition. Of course, we went, "Are you kidding me?" So she set up an audition for us, and we went down to see these guys, Chris Beard and Alan Bly, who produced the Sonny and Cher show. We went in the office, and all we did was these disgusting sketches. That's all we knew. So we did these disgusting sketches in front of them, and they didn't even smile. They just looked at us. And then Chris Beard, he said, "Hey, wait a second. Weren't you the fork on Laugh-In?" You know, and I went, "Yeah," because that was several years before. And he was a writer on Laugh-In, and he remembered me as being the fork. Whether that had any bearing on it, I don't know. But anyway, we left that audition feeling that we didn't have a shot. But 2 days later, they called, and next thing we knew, we were on a Sonny and Cher show for 4.5 years, you know, with the Sonny and Cher. And then, of course, Sonny had a show by himself for about 6 months. Yeah.
What was that like, being on the Sonny and Cher show?
It was well, for me, I was actually selling shoes at that time to make a living, and fortunately it was during the mini skirt craze, so I had a good time. It was yikes. So but it was an interesting period. But that's what I was doing then. While I was at Red Fox Club, I was a shoe salesman at J.C. Penney's, of all places. And so it led to the Sonny and Cher show. The next 4 years, it was really a fascinating period of my life, because you're talking about somebody who's selling shoes. Next thing they're on a national show, and I mean, working with everybody, you know, in those days. From
did you get recognized? Did you get like at that time, you know, because you had become the unknown comic later, but did you get recognized walking down the street now, being part of this, like, you know, top TV show?
If I walked down the street with my hands up in the air like this, I would get, "Oh, weren't you the fork on that?" Yeah, that would be it. No, actually, you know, I got confused for Sonny a lot, because I looked a bit like him with the mustache and stuff like that. But yeah, we we developed fans, and over that course was me and Freeman and Ted Ziegler and Billy Van, and Terry Garr, the actress, was the one, you know, female female regular on the show. So we're all the 5 regulars on the show, and I had a blast. And it was just again, it was, what can I say? You're all of a sudden you're on this major TV show and you're working with all these celebrities and people that I idolize, like Jerry Lewis, would come on every year, and got to work with him. And Cher was was fun to work with. Sonny turned out to be sort of a jerk, as I mentioned in my book, Journey Through the Unknown, unfortunately. But Cher was really quick-witted too, even though she was only in her early 20s then. I remember, like every Halloween, I was the werewolf, and I'd spend like 2 hours in a chair to do all the werewolf on me. So the first Halloween, pubic hair in my throat, sorry, but it's mine. So no worries.
Calling Michael Douglas. He's been outdone.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But anyway, so the first year I had all this makeup done, and I had these grotesque hairy hands, and I walked in a rehearsal hall, and Cher was sitting with her back to me talking to some of the dancers, right? So I decided I was going to scare her. So I snuck up behind her and I put this grotesque hairy hand on her shoulder like this, thinking I was going to scare her. And as quick as a whip, she just looked at my hand and went, "Sonny, your mother's here," And I went, I knew right then the woman definitely had a sense of humor and had a quick wit. Yeah. So it was interesting. Yeah. But
She's
it was
so sassy. She's so sassy. Did she sass
she
him?
was. Well, she would refer to me as the asshole back in those days, because I was always doing practical jokes and having fun and being an asshole. So, but I always said, without assholes, we'd all weigh about, 2,000 or 3,000 pounds. So we are necessary.
So what made you decide to invent the unknown comic? Like, how did that come about?
Well, it was an accident, actually, it was basically either that or, a lot of the dates I would go on, they would say, "Murray, could you put a bag over your head?" No, actually, I had a really bad complexion then, and it was cheaper than Clearasil. Actually, the truth is, after the Sonny and Cher show folded, and I'd done a bunch of other TV shows. I did a series with Bobby Vinton. I did a series with Wolfman Jack. I did a series with Lola Falana. I did a series with the Hudson Brothers. I just did tons of television as a comedy actor then. And the next thing I knew, I decided to open a nightclub, I figured, and I sort of specialized in bankruptcy and was out of business after about 2 years. Seriously, but I had a club called Showbiz, which was, and I use a lot of singing and comics in there, and like a lot of the acts that started out, David Letterman actually started out at my club because he lived a block away on Oxnard, which he used to do jokes about. Letterman started there. Michael Keaton was actually sort of discovered at my club by a guy named Harry Colomby. He was Michael Douglas back then when he started at my club. Yeah, so it was one of my waitresses was Deborah Winger. It was a waitress I ended up using at my club. So it became a fascinating place. But like I said, after 2 years, the money I made as a comedy actor was all history, and the club went down the drain because I learned back then that in order to be from all the club owners I knew, you had to be sort of a prick to be a successful club owner for the most part. But I wasn't, and people just ate for free, drank for free. And so, like I said, 2 years later, I was down the drain. But that's how the unknown comic. So then I was broke, I had no money, and I was starting all over again. And the Gong Show, which had already been on the air about 6 months, was on. And I heard about it, and I heard that if you're in the union, they had to pay you to be on the Gong Show, which was, I don't know, maybe, $150, $200 back then. And I was obviously in the union. So my goal was simply to go make a couple $100 off the Gong Show. But because I've been on all these TV shows, I didn't want my friends to see me on this Gong Show. So I said, well, if I put a bag over my head, tell a couple of jokes, I'll make a couple $100. And what happened is I knew the talent coordinator because, Chuck Barris, who produced the Gong Show, he also did the Dating Game, Newlywed Game, a bunch of other shows. And by then I'd already been on the Dating Game several times. So I had called Ruth Goldberg, who was the talent coordinator for the Gong Show and the Dating Game. and asked her how I could get on the Gong Show. And she said, hey, they do this thing where they have curtain closers. Maybe you could just come out and, do a couple jokes as the bad guy, and Chuck will close the curtain on you. Anyway, I came out and I said, hey, Chucky, you and your wife ever make love in the shower? And he said, no. I said, well, you should. She loves it. And that Chuck, that was my first joke, and the audience loved it. And so
I am your target audience.
yeah, Chuck came back to me after the show and said, that was really great. Can you do another one? So I ended up doing 150 Gong shows, and 150 times $200. That's over $400 or $500 right there, I think.
So
Anyway,
here's a question. Did the Gong Show come before you tried this out at the Comedy Store?
oh yeah, no. Like I said, the Gong Show had been on the air 6 months before I came up with the Unknown Comic, and so it was once I started doing them at the once he started to get some momentum on the Gong Show, then I said, well, maybe there's an act here, and then I started to. No, actually, that's not even what happened. What happened is Las Vegas came a calling. A guy named Jack Aglash, who booked the Sahara Hotel, the lounge, where acts like Jerry Van Dyke and Rip Taylor and all these acts worked, asked me if I had an act. And I didn't, as the Unknown Comic, because I only worked with a comedy team up till then. I was always petrified to do stand-up. I never thought I could do it. So now I was pressured. And so so what I did is I started putting this act together. So anyway, they were offering me $5,000 a week, which to me was huge money. I'd never seen that kind of money to work at the Sahara Lounge. But so what I ended up doing is I put this act together, and I started putting stuff together at the Comedy Store, and I ended up hiring a band, because you had to have like a trio back in those days. So I had a band called the Baguettes. The Brown Baggers. Then I hired 2 girl dancers who were called the Baguettes, and so the band had bags over their heads. The girl dancers had bags over their heads, and I put this show together. And but the show ended up, I was getting $5,000 a week, but the show was costing me $7,000 or $8,000 a week. So I ended up losing my ass off for the first because I had to pay their hotel rooms, their salaries, and all that stuff. So, but the reviews I got from the opening night were just killer reviews, and it was just a great fun time. But when I ended up working in Vegas, and I ended up working in Vegas for years after that, obviously. And I was the first one to ever put a show with 3 comics together too in Vegas, before all these comedy places did it. Right. I have the write-up somewhere. At the Landmark Hotel, it was me. I headlined, and Elaine Boozler and Roger opened for me at the Landmark Hotel, probably 70 something. So in fact, Murray Nichols is going to put the first all comedy show at the Landmark Hotel. So that's another little credit that I'm proud of, that I put the first all comedy show together in Las Vegas. Yeah.
That's comedy history right there.
Yes, it is. Yes. So I ended up working there, comedy, the Sahara. I ended up working the Sahara Reno, Sahara Tahoe, Sahara Vegas. And I did a circle for a couple of years, and I just was having a blast. But I was learning. I bombed a lot back in those days, because I really didn't have a clue. I mean, when I had a full house, it was great, because it's easy when people come to see you and they know you. But there were nights when there'd be like 15, 20 people, because I had to do 3 shows a night on weekends. And I would bomb my ass off, and I would go home crying. But those 2 years were a really great learning period for me, because, like I said, I'd never done stand-up as a single person until I created the Unknown Comic. And obviously, you can't do an hour show with the bag on, because it wears itself thin after about 12 minutes. So I really had to work at developing myself as a stand-up comic, but it was pressure. And I've always said pressure is a great creative force. It really pushes you forward. So I've always loved being under pressure, and so that's been a good thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're a single dad, and you took time away from comedy to focus on your daughters. So
I retired pretty much, except for the occasional sporadic gig. I retired about 20 years ago, for the most part, and would do, gig here and there, but very sporadically. Yeah. And so, like I said, now I'm going to come up and I'm putting a bunch of gigs together, but I haven't done that like in 20 years. Last gig I did was about 4 years ago, was a cruise ship. And then I did one, I think, with you, right, Jeffrey,
Yes,
in
2015.
Denver, I think. But that's because
Yep.
I had a girlfriend there at the time, and I just used it to go visit my girlfriend
And that's also because I had a millionaire that I was working with, and I don't work with him anymore.
Oh. Yeah.
But
Well,
that
that's
worked
cool.
out.
That was cool.
That was a phenomenal moment for me to work with you
Yeah,
in Denver.
that was
because
fun. Like I said,
the neat thing was I wanted the public to appreciate how great you are, and then to have Steve McGrew feature for you. For me to watch Steve McGrew go to school watching you, it was great. He just sat there and watched your whole set.
well, I watched him. He was amazing. I was like
He is
worried about him
amazing.
because he's an amazing comic. Yeah.
He is, and that's why I wanted to book great comics. I was so fortunate that I
was
booked.
worried about following him because he was amazing. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that was fun, and
You came
I'm
to
sorry,
Vegas. You came to Vegas not long ago, way down south of town, and you did a show in an
yeah.
Indian restaurant in the back, amazing room. You had people.
Yeah, I did a favor to that guy who had been bugging me to do a show for years, and and so I ended up finally giving in to him and did that. But I thought he was going to have a much better venue. I didn't know it was going to be like a little place that held 45 people, and that he didn't do any advertising. So it was luckily a few people showed up, but it was okay. Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are asking when you're going to come back to Vegas so they can come see you.
Yeah, well, it looks like there's a good possibility me and Jimmy Walker may do the South Point. My buddy George Pecoraro says he's been talking to them, and he says it's looking real good. So in the next couple months,
I will be there, but I couldn't be more excited because Ventura Harbor Comedy Club loves you, and you've performed there. It's a great venue.
I've never performed there. I did a thing with Elaine. No, I just did a thing with Elaine Boozler, a charity thing, and did like about 10 minutes, but I've never actually done a gig there. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, it's a wonderful venue right there on the harbor, and they're super excited. The club is super excited to have you. So this is going to be a great week, man. I'm really excited.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Now, did you say that the guy wanted me up there earlier though? The owner or something?
They want to book you in February.
Oh, that's great. I
won't let the cat out of the bag, but they are booking some legends there, which is really making me happy because that's been my good fortune in comedy is I've got to work with great people like you and Fraser Smith, my buddy Vic, and Rick
Fraser's a good guy.
I got to work, Bill Kirkenbauer, all these great people that I'm so fortunate to have known you guys and to glean anything from you guys. So I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. So now that you're back in comedy, what are your goals for 2022?
Why is Linda bothering us? Why is she bothering us? Yeah. I'm kidding. Oh, we're losing sound here. What is it?
What are your goals in comedy in the next 1 to 5 years, Murray?
I just sort of missed it because I haven't done, the thing about doing stand-up, if you don't do it a long time, I always found it took me like 3 shows before I was actually at my top shape, and I haven't done 3 shows in a row in 20 years, because like I'll do one show that I won't do another one for like 10 months or a year and a half or 2 years. So I just want to put a bunch of shows together, and I got a bunch of different like crazy stuff I want to try also. And I just want to get out of the house for a little bit and try a bunch of these shows. So I booked a winery, and I booked 2 of Randy Lupus's clubs in Santa Clarita. And so we're going to see what's going to happen. So
absolutely. So who is somebody that you've worked with that you still stay in touch with, and what? I
don't know if you know him. I worked with him years ago. Really super nice guy. Funny as hell. Where was it? Denver. Yeah, Jeffrey Peterson. You know him? Yeah. He's a sweet guy, and I'll let you in on a secret. He's a great kisser.
Thank you.
Yeah, you.
I got that. I got
But
the
again,
tongue
he's right.
piercing. I got the tongue
Yeah.
piercing you requested. So,
Well, it matches my pee-pee piercing, I'm sure.
oh my God.
Oh my gosh. What's it like to have a daughter who's written over 50 songs for Britney Spears?
Well, she hasn't written over 50 songs. She's written, she has one, but she's written for, she sang on probably a whole bunch of songs for Britney Spears. And she's on like some of Britney's top songs like Circus. My daughter was a singer on those songs with Britney, and her name is on all the records, Maya Marie.
And Maya
but
is a wonderful talent in her own right. I've seen her perform with
yeah.
her, and she is a star. She is phenomenal.
Yeah, she's still doing well, and she's doing better than ever as a songwriter. But she had a record that made the top 40. It made it up to 38 that she sang, called "Crazy Stupid Love," and they sent her on tour with that. The recording, or the people that signed her, and she didn't really enjoy that. She prefers the songwriting part of it to the traveling part. But she's still out to get a #1 record, and I think she's going to do it. She just writes like crazy all the time. She has probably hundreds of songs on YouTube that she's written. Yeah.
Amazing.
So how do
So
I
she's-
find her on YouTube? Maya Marie?
Just put Maya Marie, but it's MYAH
Yes.
Marie. MYAH Marie, Marie. Yeah. So that's her middle name. So she just uses those. I don't know why she doesn't want to use Langston, but I don't blame her.
Speaking of which, has she ever put you in a song?
No, I can't think of any that I can think of.
That'd be funny.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
I was going to mention to you, Murray. I was going to mention, the bag you created is so iconic. I mean, and we've watched over the years. You watched other people use it to make a point. People will put a bag over their head, and even Marvel comic books. There's an episode there's an issue of Spider-Man where Spider-Man is wearing, to hide his identity, he's wearing the bag.
No kidding. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, no, it's cool that they had male strippers.
I want to make a comic book about. I've done drawings. I want to make the unknown superhero with you, a comic book. I think it would be great.
That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
A guy with a bag over his head, and a comedian by day or by night, then becomes a superhero by day.
Go for it, Jeffrey. I'm not going to stop you. Yeah. Yeah. To me, it was like it was a fun period of my life. But like I said, I got involved in other things. I did a few movies. Did a movie about homeless people called Up Your Alley. I did another movie called Wishful Thinking, and of course it was Night Patrol was the crazy movie.
I was going to say Night Patrol is. I mean, that is iconic to people. Yeah, that is like that's a cult classic.
And I'm doing plays. I'm going to get ready to put another play up here. So I'm always doing something. Life to me, you shouldn't exist. You got to live it. And so even at my age of 47, I still think, what? Oh, I would be 77, but I was sick for 30 years. So we got to keep that in context.
What's your play What's your play about?
It's called 7-Story Man. It's about I actually ran it one time a couple of years ago, and it got standing ovations. It's about a guy who's it opens up. It's only a 2-character play, 2 guys. It opens up in a 7-story office of a guy's office building, and he's getting ready to jump out the window. He wants to kill himself when a guy breaks into his office to rob it, and that's played by me. And the whole play, it's 2 hours, is about the relationship these two develop, and in the course of the guy trying to stop the guy from killing himself. And the interesting thing is, while you're watching this play, you're always trying to figure out how this is going to end. And it's got a complete, shocking, surprising ending where every time I ran it, the audience would gasp. So it's a real fun play, but I want to put it on again because I want to film it this time. Yeah. So 7-Story Man. And I'm also getting ready to put a comedy review together, which we talked about, called Ha Ha, We're Old. There's nothing but sketches and jokes and one-liners and all about being 60 plus, So I got the script just about finished, and I can send it to you, Linda, because I think you'd be one to talk about it too. So I just finished a really rough rough draft of the script a couple of days ago. So I'll be able to send you one.
Thank you. Yes, that'd be awesome.
Yes, it'd be fun. Yeah. Yeah.
I should be 60 pretty soon.
Yeah. Okay.
Is
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
anything you want to talk about that we didn't talk about other than where to follow you and when you're going to be performing? What would you like to say to the few people that watch this out of my, usually a couple hundred people, couple thousand if we're lucky, but what would you like to say to people now that you
I just say, hey, I just say, enjoy your life. Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay silly, and enjoy not just every day, but try to enjoy every minute, because that's what I try to do. Life, is too short, as all our buddies leaving, like Bob Saget and McDonald. Yeah, and interestingly enough, Bob actually came up to me when he was a teenager when I did the Mike Douglas show. It was the first time I met him, and telling me he wanted to be a comic. So that's how far back. I just had lunch with him. About 4 years ago at a deli at the Promenade, and it was great seeing him. I hadn't seen him in years, but we became fast friends in the beginning because I gave him my address, and when he first came to LA, he showed up at my house unannounced, and in the early days. So he was such a great guy back then. I was even invited to his wedding with Sherry, but Bob didn't want to pay my fare back to Philadelphia, his first wife. But he was a practical joker. Back in those days, we had answering machines, but the answering machine I had, it didn't stop after 2 minutes. It would go on and on. And Saget would call and leave an hour-long message on my machine where you'd have to listen to this hour-long. He was just a crazy dude right from the very beginning. And as raunchy as you can get in person too. Yeah.
And like you, and I'll say this because I've been
my still favorite line of Bob Saget.
In front of me. He's lightning fast, just like you. He's got
he is. Yeah.
So many jokes.
Yeah, my favorite joke is his. He says the definitive way of if a guy knows he's gay, you're gay if you're sucking on a guy's dick and you're thinking of another guy. That's a Bob Saget joke, by the way.
I like when he used to say, and that's mom turned upside down, and mom turned upside down is wow.
Wow. Yeah. He did some sick jokes. The one about the pervert who kidnaps his 4-year-old boy, takes him out to the woods, and the boy's crying, and he says to the kid, "What are you crying for? I'm the one that has to walk back alone." Those are Bob Saget's raunchy, wrong jokes, but that's what he was known for. Love the guy. I actually, he was just the greatest guy, sweetest guy, as they say, to be around. Yeah. But anyway,
I can't wait to work with you in a couple months, man. I'm super excited.
Yeah, look forward to it. Okay, I'm going to get back to my daughter now, and I'm doing my book, Journey Through the Unknown. If you go to my site, it's therealunknowncomic.com, therealunknowncomic.com. If anybody wants to book all these stories, plus, me being threatened by Frank Sinatra, me partying all night with Elvis, spending Christmas Eve with Lucille Ball. So many great things happened in my life that I just, I'm thrilled that I got to live it, and it's still happening. Like hanging out with the next big comic, Jeffrey Peterson, and Linda, who's going to be in that funny review called "Ha Ha, We're Old," right?
I don't give a shit if anybody else doesn't like me. The fact that you do, that's all that matters to me.
It's weird because I like you more than is normal to like another guy, especially that night. Yeah.
Oh my. Well, thank you so much, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you guys again soon. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Yes, here we go.
Love you lots. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for co-hosting.
Bye, Jeffrey. Thank you so much.
That was awesome.